All right, we are on episode 2 of the For My Dogs podcast. I got my boy Johnny with me.
What is up,
Um,
everybody?
yeah, and we are back for another episode. If this is your first time listening, For My Dogs is a podcast that we created just to talk about what it's like to be a man in today's world and to also highlight how we can't do it alone. And we named it that because we're both huge SEC fans. So I'm a Tennessee fan. He's a Georgia fan. Both
Go
have
dogs.
dogs as their mascot. He's got Uga. I got Smokey, which I actually brought in my Smoky mug this time.
I saw that you got a new mug.
Yeah, I love some good coffee. Um, so yeah, we're back for another episode. Last episode, we just kind of introduced ourselves, told a little bit of our story and some of the lessons we've learned along the way. And we hope to do, that periodically as we're learning new things. We'll share it with you guys. But for this episode, we're gonna talk specifically about, how to be there for your friend. Um, because last time we kind of touched on like for each of us what it was like for us to be honest about where we're at, and specifically with my story, I didn't talk about it for a long time, and you talked about how you had no idea I was going through what I was going through. So we're going to kind of touch on like how can you pick up on some of those things, how can you have those conversations, what to do, what not to do. So that's what we'll be getting into today. But before we do that, just to have a little fun, Johnny and I want to rank the top 5 ways to hang out with the boys. Now, this is it's a crucial list here. Crucial list. I'm interested to see what you have on yours and if there's any overlap. But how about you kick us off and give us what's in your number 5 spot, that bottom spot?
All right, yes, number five. Now, when we're talking about doing this, I had things like fishing or working out together or something like that. But then I like really thought about the times I've hung out with the boys, and it's been like a good time. You're gonna laugh at me for number five, but number five has to be at Jack Brown's. That is like it's got
Jack
good food,
Brown's.
good drinks, best burger in the entire world. And when you have good food around, the time is always going to be good. So for me personally, Jack Brown's number five
Okay.
never disappoints. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I just have to say, so Johnny lived in Greenville for a hot minute. Then, yeah, this restaurant, Jack Brown's, he like raved about it all the time. Haley and I heard so much about this place. So we
That's
went to
all
go
I talked
visit him
about.
one time, and we go there, and he's explaining, they give you this sheet of paper, and
Hmm.
if you have like, I forget how did it work? If you have a certain amount of drinks on their menu,
Right. Yeah. You can't have the same drink twice.
you have the same drink twice.
Yeah. And I got a free t shirt, but if you think about it, it wasn't that free. Now,
Right. It's a
before,
sick shirt though.
yeah. And before you start thinking anything crazy, I mean, this is a list that I had to do within like 3 years.
Right.
So it took a while.
Yeah.
But they also don't believe in ordinary burgers. Like there's no lettuce and tomato on a burger. So like my favorite is the Greg Brady, and it has mac and cheese and barbecue chips on it.
Hmm.
So that one always hits.
Yeah. I just was laughing every time you talked about trying to get this shirt because I was like, you're spending like
It was
$5 on whatever drink you're getting.
for sure.
Hey, but you got it, man.
But I am so competitive, and
Yeah.
that I think was more of what was happening than anything else.
Yeah. Gosh, that's funny. Jack Brown's was good. It was
I've
good.
never took someone there and they're like, "Oh man, it's okay."
Yeah. It's not big either.
No, it's oh yeah,
It's a
it's very small.
small place.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, my number 5, and this, I don't want people to think, that I'm some big golfer or anything because I'm not. But golfing with the boys is just so fun. Like you just get to be outside and you get to, Well, let me specifically say playing captain's choice with the boys. Because if I was out there and we were golfing and I was keeping my own score, I would not be having a good time. But if we're playing captain's choice, it's a blast. I mean, you're doing something competitive, and you usually when I go play, we'll break it up into teams. So we'll do like 2v2 or depending on how many people are there. And so you're like keeping track of your scores, and most of me and my buddies usually works out to where the score's close, and it's not like someone's just running away with it. So it usually comes down to like the last hole or two, and you can just have some drinks out there, smoke some cigars, just like have a fun day outside. You're having conversations in the golf cart at the tee box. You're talking, which for some golfers that may be like a cardinal sin, but when I'm on the golf course, it's just to have a good time and to hang out with the boys. I'm not out there trying to make the tour or take my game really seriously because I don't play enough to take myself seriously. But that would be number five for me. It's
Hey,
just
and
a
I can
nice
attest
day
to
of
that.
golf. Yep.
Yeah, because we went, was that, how long ago was that? 3 weeks ago?
I
2 weeks ago?
think it was
Anyway,
three. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. It's already been 3 weeks, but I'm not a golfer. I want to be a golfer. I'm getting to the age of my life where that's what guys do now, and I need to invest into it. But I was a cheerleader when we went. I they because it was two teams like he said.
Yep.
And so four guys were playing, and then I'm in the cart by myself, just watching and cheering them on. Actually, I didn't even cheer you on. I just didn't even like. I just kind of like
You just chill out.
I kind of chilled out and did my own thing. But yeah, so it was fun to hang out with y'all for sure.
Oh yeah. It's a good time. Next time you'll have to play.
I do need to play. So number four. Now this one can sound kind of lame, and this but this is like one of my favorite things
Mm-hmm.
is late nights in the living room.
Mm.
And I say late nights because like
Like late, late.
yeah, like late nights where like so Tucker and I were hanging out last week and then we went to my buddy's house
Oh yeah.
and to me hanging out in my buddy's living room was like my favorite part of the whole night.
I agree.
We were watching
100%.
funny YouTube videos
Oh yeah.
and then
Nostalgic.
oh yeah, great YouTube videos, just laughing. And
Yeah.
then after the YouTube videos ended, we came up and had like a serious conversation. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying to have like these top fives need to always be a serious conversation, but
Mm-hmm.
late night living room hangouts, you never know what's going to happen. You might just talk about like something stupid the entire night, or you might have like a deep convo.
Yeah.
That's like the is always the unknown, but it's always fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We ended up having a pretty deep conversation that night. So
Yeah,
that was cool. It was fun. And it all sparked talking about us doing this. So
for sure.
that was pretty cool. Um, so yeah, that would be an honorable mention for me. But I have one that's like sort of similar
Right.
later.
Right.
So,
Okay, I got you.
but my number four, and I'm kind of cheating because I'm putting two into one slot pretty much, but just watching football with the boys, whether that's in person and you're tailgating and you're going to the game, or just having the boys over to the house watching a little football on television. Maybe it's an all day thing. Maybe you're watching the noon game, the afternoon game, and the night game. You know, a lot of people will watch NFL just all day on Sunday, with their boys, and I uh, I have a good time with that anytime because you and I both are huge football fans. So any excuse to just hang out and watch football all day is going to be a great time.
Oh, for sure. That's on my list, but I'm not going to get there yet.
Yeah,
So
fair
that's an
enough.
overlap.
Yeah.
My number three. Now, I feel like it should be on number three because I haven't done this in years. But back home, when I lived in Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
was Waffle House.
Ooh,
Like
I
that
love
was
some Waffle House.
that was the thing was to be at Waffle House, getting the same thing, getting coffee no matter what. Waffle House in the daytime to me is just gross. Um, but Waffle House at night is the best.
Yeah,
And my buddy and I used to get lawn chairs. So after we were at Waffle House, we would go out in the parking lot and sit in lawn chairs and just keep hanging out. Like Waffle House back
that's
home
awesome.
was the place to be every
Yeah,
time.
yeah, that's so awesome. Waffle House, man. What's your order there?
4 cheese eggs, it's hash browns with
Hmm.
Waffle House sauce, which is similar to Zaxby sauce, but Waffle House sauce is the best. And then coffee, no cream. It's my order there every
Yeah,
time. What about you?
always the All Star Special.
That's true.
Always, because I don't go often.
Mm-hmm.
I make it count when I go. Which All Star Special, you get the waffle, and I always add chocolate chips,
Mm-hmm.
and then hash browns, uh, scrambled eggs, the toast, and then I usually get sausage, and it's just an incredible meal. Incredible.
Man.
And a
Oh, I know.
coffee, black coffee.
Black coffee is the way to go.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about it, we got to go to Waffle House sometime soon.
I haven't been in forever,
I
so I
haven't
would
either.
love to go.
Oh, it's so good. So good. And it's like, you just never know what you're going to get there.
No, but never go at daytime. Always go. Like it has to be dark outside in order for me
Right.
to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in the daytime and it's
It's just it's a
still
weird,
good.
but to me it's a weird feeling.
Yeah. And I love the ones that have the jukebox.
Mm-hmm.
That's even better.
And it's always freezing cold.
Yep. Yep.
It's great.
Yep. So that was your number three?
Yeah.
Okay. My number three, and we just did this weekend. My number three was, um, and this is a new one, but it inched up my list
Mm-hmm.
because of how fun it was. But this weekend we had, I had all the guys over to my house, and we played the new College Football 25 video game, and we would just like hand off the sticks each game. So like a different two of us were playing, just having drinks, hanging out, talking, laughing. And I mean, it was a blast. We laughed so much and
It was
like
a
we're
lot of fun.
getting so into the game and it was so nostalgic and like it just took me back to, our childhood and like going over to your friend's house and just playing video games for 3 hours straight and nobody bothering you, nobody,
No, no.
it
And I'm
was
not a big
fun.
video game guy, but I still enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
I had to stress for a tiny bit towards the end.
Yeah, our
And then
games.
I got
Well,
cocky.
let's clarify. The very first game we played,
Okay, you
I
can't say that one.
I beat the brakes off you
But
with Tennessee.
yes, but you're saying that as someone who's never played. So it's
But
not that impressive.
you were on freshman difficulty and I was on varsity.
Right. But if I was on like middle school difficulty, I think I still would have played the same.
Maybe. But then
So
the second game,
I knew what I was doing second game.
well, not really because you punted it to me at the
No.
end. You could
Yeah.
have easily won the game.
Oh, no, I didn't punt it to you. I I decided to throw it instead of punting. And
I
then
thought you
that's
punted it.
I don't know. Either way, I got cocky is
Oh
the
yeah.
summary of that.
And then I threw a Hail Mary bomb to win the
Yeah.
game
I thought
as
I
time
had you.
expires.
Yeah, I thought I had you.
Oh man, that was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
And then yeah, one of my buddies when they were playing, he was getting like so animated and into it, and I was just
Oh, I
dying
know.
laughing. It was
Like
so
you're at a real
funny.
game. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, talking trash and like, oh man, it was
It's
hilarious.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
My I guess number two
Mhm.
is tailgating and watching football.
Nice.
So that's just yeah, it's the similar like I'm like I've been to games where you don't even go into the game, you just tailgate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just fun too. Just hanging out with people,
Mm-hmm.
talking trash to the
Mm-hmm.
other team, and or just like if we're like you said, just like like all day. Now I'm not a big NFL guy, and I have no like reason why, but I just enjoy watching college football better.
Yeah.
So on Saturdays, just all day long. mean, watching college game day when it comes on in the morning to watching the night game. I mean, just all day long, just
Oh yeah.
hanging out with the boys. I think my dad is actually coming up this fall to watch football with you and I.
Oh yeah.
So,
That'd be awesome.
so like, football, watching football is just what my family and your family's always done. And it's just always a great time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and I feel like with the tailgating piece of it,
Hmm.
I've also found that that's a great way to meet new people.
Oh, for sure.
Like we go to Wake Forest games in tailgate, and we got a
Right.
pretty big tailgate group, and like it's just a great like time to meet new people, talk, get to know
Hmm.
people. Um, there's a guy that tailgates next to us who's just a ton of fun, and we've gotten to know him, and like it's just really cool. Like I know what he does for work. I know that I knew about when he was getting married, and got to tell him congrats when it happened. And I football, sports, and music are two of my favorite things because they bring people together regardless of background, regardless of what their political or religious beliefs are. Everybody's there united around that one thing. Now,
Oh, for sure.
sports, you're obviously pulling for your different teams, but still,
But you have that foundational bond.
right, right. And I
Yeah.
love it. I love that. Like,
Yeah.
I love those aspects of sports and music. Like if you're at a concert, it's the
Hmm.
same type of thing. So,
Oh, for sure.
all right. So my number two is um is sort of similar to when you were talking about like late nights in the living room, but I think anytime I'm hanging out with the boys and we just start sharing like old stories, old memories, and just
That's
like
good. That's a good one.
reminiscing is just I always enjoy it so much because you laugh so much, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you get those like endorphins going just from talking about like good memories from the past,
Hmm.
um, and like yeah, crazy stuff that you did as a stupid teenager and
Hmm.
in high school or middle school, and like even going back, like I have friends that I've known since elementary school, and like talking about some of the stuff we did as kids when you like didn't have phones and like you had to entertain yourself and like use your imagination. And I grew up in a small town, so it's not like we had a lot of options of stuff to do. So I mean, it's just hilarious to think back and reminisce on stories with them. And um like even with us, when we think back to like stuff that happened when we were at the summer camp we worked at, and
Hmm.
um we haven't been friends for as long, but like even when we reminisce on stuff we've done together.
No,
Like
that's
that
a
one,
great point.
yeah, like the one time the four of us went to that cabin, and we literally
Oh, yeah.
stayed in the hot tub most of the nights, and
Yes.
then
It
watched
was
football
freezing.
all day on Saturday
Hmm.
because I think it was week one. It was either week 0 or week 1.
Yes, it was the opening. Yeah, but there's no Wi-Fi either
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
And you
and
did
we
make the best steak. And I'm like not trying to like pump you up or anything,
yeah,
but yeah, that was a great steak.
we had great food that whole weekend. I was so full when we
Oh
left.
yeah, I was stuffed.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
you know like reminiscing on stuff like that, I just
Oh,
think
for sure.
that's top tier.
I know. I kind of regret not having that one in there, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right.
um,
What's your number one? Let's
Number
hear it.
one is if the night, like I don't care what you do during the day, and this, I mean, this trumps like late night living room. If the night ends in this, then I will always say it's a great night. If the night ends this way, and it's going outside, having a fire, listening to some Zach Bryan or some country music, and get some
Yeah.
drinks and everything. That if
Yeah.
the night ends that way, is phenomenal. Is that your number one?
Yeah. That's my number one.
There you go. There you go. Yes, that's
Yeah.
we just for the record, we did not share these with each other.
No, we
We
did
had no
not.
idea. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's why I was laughing when you said that because, yeah, I have the same exact number one, except I specifically said sitting by a fire in the fall. or sitting
Oh,
around a
for
fire
sure.
in the
Summer
fall.
fires are the worst.
Yeah. But and I'll explain the reason why this is my number one. It's
Mhm.
because it's few and far between these days that we have environments where we're not distracted by something, where we're
Right.
like not tempted to be on our phone or to like watch a TV or
Hmm.
something like that. And man, when you are sitting around a fire with your boys and yeah, maybe you're having some drinks, maybe you're smoking a cigar, like
Hmm.
your phone's away, you're all just looking at the flames flicker of the fire, which is peaceful in and of itself. Like
And like a
that alone,
pyromaniac,
yeah, it's just fascinating. Like that alone is great part of this hangout.
oh,
But
for sure.
the reason why I love it is because you're out there for 2.5 hours as the fire's
Mm.
going, and it's non-distracted, uninterrupted, just conversation with the boys. Like
Oh, for sure.
it's just it creates the space for you to be able to talk, whether it's about, maybe that's a time where you're reminiscing and
Hmm.
thinking back on old memories, but it also like I've had a lot of deep conversations sitting around a fire.
Oh, for sure.
Um, and so that for me is why it's my number one.
Oh yeah, always. I mean, it's not like it's never going to disappoint.
Yeah.
Even if you don't say a single word,
Yeah.
you just sit there. But also like you're right. Like I mean, more times than not, that's going to lead to, someone sharing something, and it is just like always like it's always a great time.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that transitions well into what we were wanting to talk about today, which
Hmm.
is, let's say you're in that scenario. You're sitting around the fire, you're with, maybe just one friend or you're with a group of friends and um, one of your friends like needs help, like they're really going through something, they're really struggling, maybe they open up about it while you're sitting around the fire, or maybe you ask them a question and then they open up. How do you be there for them in that moment? What are some things to do? What are some things not to do? um, so yeah, I'll let you kick it off, Johnny, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think a disclaimer at first that so like I think at first we'll do the what not to do, and Tucker and I by no means are experts in either of these fields. These don'ts, I know for me personally, and I could assume for Tucker too, are mistakes that I've had. Like I've I've had people be there for me, and I've been there for people, and I witnessed these interactions happen that killed a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So my number one, and this is like a big deal for me, is to never say I understand when you
Mm.
don't understand. So if someone comes to you and maybe they're depressed and you've never been depressed before, or
Yeah.
they have a death in the family, or they have issues with their girlfriend or their wife or brother, or they have anxiety if you've never had anxiety before, don't say I understand,
Mm-hmm.
because two things are going to happen. Worst case scenario, they're going to shut you down or they're going to like argue with you what you're going to do is you're going to offend them. And, best case scenario for you personally is they're going to in their head be like, okay, well, this guy obviously has no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm going to change the subject. What you're trying to do is you're trying to show compassion, be
Mm-hmm.
on common ground. So instead of saying, I understand, what you should say is like, hey, man, like if they say something, you say, hey, man, I see you, I hear you, and I can't imagine what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, you're saying the same thing because you're relaying the same information, but saying I understand and saying I see you are two different things, because you don't have to say I understand. You're trying to just fill the air and try to show compassion, but man, that will kill the conversation in a heartbeat for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I think you're making a good point there. You want them to know that they're heard, and
Right.
usually we think that saying I understand is the best way to
Hmm.
do that. But just the reality of like human nature is when someone says I understand to us, we've like trained ourselves to expect a but coming after that. Like
That's good.
I understand, but
Right.
um and so yeah, it's this goes for too when like someone's sharing their opinion with you and like maybe you don't agree with it. So if you say like, I understand, but
Right.
you're raising up walls, you're going to offend them.
Right.
But if you say like, I agree, and then say
Right.
whatever you were going to say, that's way less
Right.
confrontational and it doesn't put you on the opposite. Or if you say like, I respect your thought
Hmm.
or your opinion and you give your
Yeah.
thought and opinion, then it doesn't come across as like
Yeah. Like I see where you're
confrontation.
coming from. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But, and what we're talking about now, like if someone's sharing something with you, yeah, I think just letting them know they're heard.
Hmm.
Like, I hear you. I find
Hmm.
myself saying that to Haley a lot.
Hmm.
Um, when we're talking through, having deep conversation, I try to
Yeah.
just let her know that I'm listening and I hear.
Yeah. And they may not respond to you saying that. They may
Yeah.
keep talking, but like internally, they're like, man, that feels good to hear
Yeah.
because that's what they're looking for the entire time.
Yep. Yeah. And I think um, it's also important, like, everyone wants to be seen and to be heard,
Hmm.
and everyone wants to be loved.
Hmm. For
And so
sure.
if you can provide that for people, especially in a moment of vulnerability, that goes a long way and they'll feel more comfortable coming to you in the future with stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
Because
yeah.
these won't just be a one conversation deal if this happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You like this needs to be a multiple and not to put pressure on you, but that first conversation is going to set the standard if this continues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think another thing not to do,
Hmm.
and this is something I caught myself doing recently, is like, I had a friend that we've been friends since second grade,
Hmm.
and his family like was pretty much my second family. Like we would go on vacations together. I mean, I'm super close like with him and with his family, but like since we've become adults and since like I got married, he got married, we both have, full-time jobs and like we're each doing our thing. I think we just like in the past we never had to like prioritize or put a ton of effort into our friendship. It just like we just naturally saw each other a lot and like hung out a lot.
Oh.
But like now that we're in this stage of life, that wasn't happening as much and it wasn't happening. It was very infrequent that we would see
Hmm.
each other. And for a while we would just, say like, man, it's been so long since we've seen each other, but it's just like we, never
Right.
it was like we picked up right where we left off or whatever. And I feel like I would use that as a crutch to not
Yeah.
prioritize and be intentional about that relationship. And it got to the point where that was I could no longer say like, oh, after a while when we would hang out, like maybe an hour or so into it, then it would get back to like, oh yeah, we picked up where we left
Hmm.
off. But like I started to notice it would take some time to get there. It
Hmm.
wasn't just happening right off the bat. And so, that was kind of a red flag and like a wake up call for me. And
Hmm.
um, so me and him met, right after we recorded the first episode.
Hmm.
And I was just honest with him and apologized for like not being more intentional about our friendship and not like prioritizing it and making time for it. And, um, we both shared a lot of, it was cool because after doing that, it like opened this door of vulnerability and both of us just started sharing like so much stuff with each other. And like, it was such an encouraging time hanging out. And honestly, it didn't even start like we didn't immediately start talking when we hung out. We played pickleball first, then we walked over to a brewery, and that was when we started talking.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I say all that to say, like, if you want to be there for your friends,
Hmm.
don't you have to be intentional about it, and you have to prioritize those friendships. You can't just like expect it to come to you, especially when you get into, when you're married, when you have a wife you have to care for and be there for, when you have a full-time job, like, and I don't know what it's going to be like, when we have kids, but I'm sure it'll be even tougher then. But
Yeah.
like, you can't just depend on, oh, well, we're such good friends, we just pick up right where we left off. Like,
Right.
eventually it's going to eat away at your friendship if you
Yeah.
just go long periods of time without seeing each other. So you have to prioritize and be intentional about spending time together.
Yeah. I like that. And I didn't, that thing where you said, like, oh, we kept saying, oh, you know what, we keep picking up where we left off. It was like your crutch. That's pretty deep. I didn't think of it that way, but I mean, it's just like working out. You care about your physical health, and
Mm-hmm.
so you prioritize it, and you have to set times where you're going to do that.
Yeah.
And if you take a week off, it's hard to get back into that rhythm.
Yeah.
The same way for friendship, it's just because you're prioritizing it and setting dates for it doesn't make it less meaningful. It shows that you care and you're trying.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And what we talked about too is like life now, it is hard for us to hang out in person on a
Oh, for
consistent
sure.
basis. So we were like, but we have a phone. We have
Hmm.
like
Oh, for sure.
the capability to talk and have conversations without seeing each other in person.
Yeah,
So that
right.
was kind of where we were like, yeah, we need to do a better job of just like having consistent conversation, whether it's in person or over
Hmm.
the phone, whatever it may
Hmm.
be. Um, just need to talk more.
No,
And
I like that. And my second don't is like when you do talk, I have a buddy who he uh he shows it very clearly when he's going through something. But if you start overloading him with questions, he's gonna shut down. So like if he's going through something, you can tell. And then if you start going to him and be like, "Hey man, how you doing? Are you okay? Are you not okay because of this? There's something you want me to do for you?" He'll be like, "You know what? I'm actually fine." Like let on, and then you just like lost that opportunity. And
mm-hmm.
unfortunately, you want to help again with this whole thing of saying, "I understand." You want to help, and you're probably coming from a good place, but you have to know your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start machine gunning him down with questions, you just lost the opportunity, and he's going to go back into his shell for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do get to that point, if you haven't seen that friend in a while and maybe he's going through something, I mean, do not overload that person with questions. Some people need that, but that comes with knowing your friend. But ultimately, don't just feel like you have to ask him every question that you've learned about this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sometimes people just need to say out loud what it is they're going through.
Right,
It's not that they're necessarily like looking for you to give them a solution or like
right,
looking
right,
for you to solve the case. They just want to get it out
right. That's a good
and
point.
want to be heard.
That's a
So
good
yeah,
point.
I think not overloading with questions is good.
Yeah, you don't have to be their counselor during that time.
No.
Sometimes they just want to be heard. Like you said, I like that. So like, they're not looking for you to solve their issues. They're just needing a buddy to be there, and then they can, because maybe they haven't shared this with anybody, and they just say it out loud, you
Mhm.
know, at first, and then just saying out loud, I mean, is going to be a great first step for them.
Yeah. 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 And going back to the story I was telling about, my other buddy, I think it was like another thing that like prompted me feeling like, all right, we need to have a conversation and like kind of reset a little bit
Mhm.
is because like there was something he had gone through and I had no idea about it until I was like talking to another one of our mutual friends.
Oh dang.
And I was like, dang, I have been like a terrible friend
Hmm.
because I haven't spent time with him enough. So I had no idea that he like went through this. And so like, when we met up that night, we were, talking through things. And it's like, I did the same thing to him though. Like
Hmm.
when I was going through all my job stuff, like it took me forever to talk to him about it. And even if I did like hint at some things, I never really got like fully into it with him. And so it's just, with talking about being there for somebody and like not overloading them with questions, it's like, well, you won't even be in that position to ask them questions or
Mm-hmm.
to hear about what's going on if you're not spending time with them and if you're
Mm-hmm.
not prioritizing those friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to realize how important that time is for you and for them
Okay.
in order to make it a priority. And
That's a good
that's
point.
that was so this experience with him was eye opening for me because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
dang, I didn't realize we just all have so much that we're going through, and unless we're like hanging out with people often and we trust them and like we feel like they're there for us and they hear us and they're not gonna like judge us, then we just don't share that stuff. But
Right.
we need to, and so yeah, I think it's just it goes back to prioritizing, not letting friendships just coast.
Right. But I like what you said, and I want to go to my uh
Yeah.
third point real quick, just because like I think it fits perfectly with what you just said about prioritizing your friendship. Is and I'm not trying to contradict you. I think you should. However, for me personally, I've got to a point to where I prioritize the friendship over the friend.
Mhm.
And this is like one of my biggest regrets. This happened like several years ago where I had a buddy who was going through something and we were really close, you know, kind of like you and your buddy. We were very close. And I unfortunately did know about the situation, but I was trying to prioritize a friendship. And so
Mhm.
I thought if I brought it up, because I knew the buddy and I knew he was never going to bring it up.
Mhm.
And I thought if I brought it up, it would end the friendship. So I didn't say anything. Well, unfortunately, we drifted apart because of what was going on. I didn't intentionally stop hanging out with him, but what was going on with him caused a wedge and it caused him to start hanging out with me less. Until eventually I haven't heard of this dude in like years, you
Mhm.
know? And like he even has a new phone number. I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, we are just like totally not friends anymore, which is really unfortunate. But I cared so much about the friendship that I didn't say anything to where the friendship ended, even though I didn't say anything. And so, yes, prioritize a friendship, like you were saying. And if you truly prioritize a friendship, then you'll prioritize a friend,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And
That's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, and like that is like one of my biggest regrets. And like that's why we're saying is like these don'ts that we're learning is not because of we're experts. These don'ts for me personally are mistakes that I've done
Yeah.
with these situations.
Yep. Yeah. And to piggyback off of that, I think it's like, yeah, if you're trying to preserve the friendship, then the easy thing to do is to not be honest or to not
Right.
like talk
Right.
about what's going on. And so another one of my don'ts is like, don't bottle everything up yourself.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
open and honest, your friend isn't going to be either. And so like if you have something going on, even if it's minor,
Right.
like just being honest and vulnerable about something that you view as small can
Right.
spiral into like unpacking a lot.
Right.
Um, so that would be another one for me is like if if you're not the one taking the initiative,
Mm-hmm.
then don't expect it from the other person.
Right.
And I think this goes too with like prioritizing the friend and the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect them to be the one to carry the burden of like keeping the friendship going. Like if you just wait around on them to text you or to call you,
Right.
you may both be doing that and then it's never going to happen. So
Right.
like just step up and take the initiative to do it
Mm-hmm.
because you may have a friend who's just like doesn't think about those things or like who isn't a big texter or doesn't really like talk on the phone and you may have to be the one that takes the initiative there and then when you hang out like they may be, you know, carrying more of the weight when you hang out in person. I think it's
Right.
a give and take,
Oh, for sure.
but you have to be the one to take the initiative, both in vulnerability, but also just the friendship in general. Like
Yeah.
getting caught up in assumptions or expectations of what the other person's going to do when you haven't set those expectations, then you're just
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be running in circles and
No,
nothing's going to happen.
I like that because you're like, how can you expect your friend to be vulnerable if you're withholding information too?
Yeah.
And it's not, again, going back to don't say understand, it's not saying this so that you can be on a common ground with them in a situation. It's just doing life with their brother.
Right.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
you sharing, hey man, I'm struggling with this because you truly are, and you truly like, because you need help too. Like we're all like, how we talked about in the last podcast is not, it's not if you're suffering, like it says in John, it's when you're suffering. So there's going to be a time where you're going to be suffering too. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to happen. It's not maybe, it will.
Yeah.
So you need that friend too. And so to have a friend, you need to be a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I like that. That's a great example of
Yeah.
that
And
for sure.
that's, we shared that verse from James last time, um, that like it's through our confession or through our being honest that
Hmm.
we experience healing.
Right.
And so it's, yeah, you want healing for your friend and you want them to be honest, but like, don't you want healing for yourself too?
Right. For sure.
You got to take that step. Um, and I've rarely experienced a scenario where I've stepped out of my comfort zone to be vulnerable
Hmm.
and it hasn't led to the other person being vulnerable.
Right.
I could count those moments on one hand, probably.
Right. Right.
And we're also not saying like, don't do this in some manipulative way.
Hmm.
Like, don't share something just to try and get the other person to share something.
Right.
Just be authentic. Like,
Hmm.
share it because they're your friend and you trust them and you want them to know about what's going on. And just know that like that will help them feel comfortable with
Yeah.
sharing something that they're going through. Um,
And that kind of
yeah.
goes to my dues is because you may be vulnerable, when you hang out on Friday night and he never shares anything that night, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but you need to continue. Like the reason why Tucker and I had the top five is because you need to be able to like have natural conversations with your friends. And I think that, the campfire or like the living room hangouts where it's just like, where you're there with them, he may not share with you. He may not share with you the next three hangouts.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start having these natural conversations with him and he feels comfortable, then you got to trust the process that eventually he will share with you, and don't force it and don't try to trick him into saying that. Have it be a natural conversation with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think going off of that too, it's don't distract yourself to death. And I think that's the reason why we have sitting around the campfire as our number one is
Right.
it's a it's a way to hang out that's free of distractions. And I feel like for guys, it's so easy to like go hang out at a brewery where there's tons of people and it's loud and like it's hard to have a conversation or to go watch a sports event, whatever sport it may
Right.
be. And
Right.
so you're distracted by TVs or like playing video games if you're a video game person. Like
Mhm.
we just in our culture we entertain ourselves to death. And so if your friendships, if the only time you're hanging out is doing those types of things, you're likely never going to have deep real conversations with each other
Mhm.
because there's too many other things going on. Your senses are just like too scattered.
Mhm.
But when you can slow down and you can have spaces where you're hanging out with your friends where there's no agenda, there's nothing to get to, you're not distracted, that's when you can have the conversations that need to be had.
Oh, for sure.
So that would be, one thing for me is like, think about the times when you hang out with your friends that have the least amount of distraction and try to do those more often.
Right.
And I'm not saying you got to have a deep conversation every time you hang out there, but
Oh, for sure.
you're at least creating a space for it.
a safe space for him to like you can share.
Yeah. You're allowing that to happen if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it may
Yeah.
not, but you're at least, yeah, you're making it possible.
And with that, you have to know your friend too. So
Mm-hmm.
like what so let's say you're there and the conversation happens. One thing that, when we were going through, my wife and I were going through premarital counseling, it was saying, you need to love your wife through her love language. Don't love her through your love language. So the same way with your friend is you don't if this happens and like you're in that time with him, don't try to help him the way you would receive help. If you receive help, like for me personally, I do receive help by people. Sometimes they have to ask me some questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I receive it. But if the buddy you're sharing with just needs you to just be there for him, then don't, you know, you keep asking him questions like that. So when that happens, know your friend and help him the way he receives help. You have to like take yourself out of the equation because that's not loving. You're not loving him. You're just loving the way you receive love. You need to love him the way he receives love. And unfortunately, sometimes the way to do that is by hanging out with him a lot. So like
Yeah.
this is not a overnight fix. This is not a okay, one conversation is done. This is going to have like some time invested into it. And hopefully, if you have a friend who's going through something and you see that, that he's going through something because y'all been friends for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to know your friend to help him the way he receives help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say, like, in today's world, I bet a lot of guys and their friends don't even know each other well enough, or they don't have, some people don't even have a friend that's close enough for them to be able to know what the other person needs
Right.
or like how they should. So, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But yeah, it takes a lot of time and effort.
Oh, for sure.
Any relationship, let me just clarify, any relationship takes a lot of time and effort.
Right.
Um, but it's worth it. It's incredibly worth it. And I think, that leads, my last two dues are kind of one and the same. So I'm just going to say them both. But
Yeah.
it's be quick to listen, slow to speak.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to throw in a Ted Lasso quote of
Let's
be
hear it.
curious, not judgmental.
There we go.
So if you have a buddy who's sharing something with you, make your first reaction not to make an assumption based on what they're telling you or a judgment based on what they're telling you, but to approach it with a curiosity and ask questions, not too many questions like you mentioned earlier, but just
Right.
show that you're not like against them and you're just curious. You're wanting to learn
Right.
more. And that goes hand in hand with being slow to speak and prioritizing listening. Active listening is asking questions and like helping them through their thought process. Like you're listening with the intent to help them think through what they're trying to tell you. But just having a genuine curiosity about people is just so helpful in life. Like I genuinely am I find human beings so interesting. Regardless of how different they are from me, I love meeting a new person and hearing their story, hearing their opinions. I love it. I don't care if their opinions are like on the other side of the ocean from me. Like
Right.
if there's that far of a gap,
Right.
I'm genuinely interested and curious about why they have those opinions, how those opinions were formed.
Yeah.
Like I love to hear that stuff. And I think in friendships, that type of curiosity is important too.
Yeah. And it's funny because my last point is listen to, which is good because you have parallels. But
Yeah.
like, and my listen kind of is a twofold too. Is one is to be okay with silence. Let's say you're not bringing it up. Let's say he's the one bringing it up. Well, if he's bringing it up to you, his mind is probably racing because this might be the first time he has told somebody, and so he's trying to think of what to say and how to say it. And he's also thinking about, are you judging me through this? And so just be there and listen and let him share because, and even if there's no talking right now, so like he shares, it's okay to be quiet for a little bit because he might be trying to build up the courage to share more from what he just said
Yeah.
with that. And so, and an important thing with listening is to, let's say he's sharing something and you're in your head, you're thinking about, okay, what can I say next? Don't do that
Mm-hmm.
because then you're not listening, and then you're just trying to show, oh, look all this knowledge that I have. You
Mm-hmm.
know, just actually listen to him, and listening means physically listening to him. That means like maybe like having your elbows on your knees, leaning forward, showing it on your
Mm-hmm.
face that you're listening to him. Because like for me personally, my wife tells me this is that I have like my just natural face looks like I'm ticked off at you. And so like if my buddy is sharing me something and I'm just like have my natural face, it looks like I'm mad at him. And so I have to
Mm-hmm.
like if someone is sharing something important with me, I need to make sure that I like physically am showing that I care. So like having expressions on your face and leaning forward and like having physical body language to show that to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't say like if you just say, "Hey man, I hear you. That's awesome. You know, let's hug it out. Can I pray for you?" Like you don't have to like we said earlier, you don't have to be his counselor in that point. Being a listener is probably one of the best things that you can be for him
Mm-hmm.
during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, you brought up the like body language when you're listening. There's this acronym I heard in a sermon recently that was good, but I can't find it. But it
Yeah,
said some of those things like, you know, sit up, lean in,
right.
make eye contact, like let people know you care. Let people know
Yeah.
you're invested in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put the phone away.
Oh my gosh. Do not have your phone out during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't check your watch if you get a
Yeah.
notification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that is a big red flag of, oh, this guy doesn't care about me. Even if like let's say you're looking up a Bible verse, or you're Googling something right then. Like he doesn't know that. He can't see what's on your phone,
Right.
So just be there for him. Again, this will be one of many conversations if it happens. And so you can go and research the like afterwards and you can say, hey man, thank you for sharing. Like the next time, thank you for sharing. I hope you don't mind, but like I actually like I went and like looked up this like Bible verse for you, or I went and looked up something. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this could help. That shows that you put investment and time into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like, but don't do that in the initial moment if you can avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I gave you the wrong example just
Yeah,
now
way to go, Tucker.
because I was looking up the analogy, but
No, you're good.
ironically enough, um, but yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think, all the things we touched on today, again, we're not experts. These are just
No way.
what we've learned, in our friendships and, um, yeah, just how we've tried to improve as friends, be better
Right.
friends. And we're not claiming that this is foolproof and this is all you need to be a good friend, but these are just
Hmm.
some helpful tips. And yeah, we hope that you'll, take some of these things, put them into practice. Hopefully you heard something that maybe you've never thought of or considered before. And maybe you got some new ideas on how to hang out with the boys and maybe you'll try
Oh, for
that
sure.
out.
If you're ever in the Greenville, North Carolina area, go to Jack Brown's. I think there's
Jack Brown.
more. I wish that there was one in Charlotte. I would quit my teaching job and open one up if I could. But yes, go to Jack Brown's. Be around a campfire. Not now. My sister, she went camping last month, and I thought that was the worst thing to do. Like,
That
and I was like, "Did
sounds
you have a fire?"
miserable.
She was like, "Obviously we had a fire." I was like, "Ew." I was like, "Are you like you're sweating, and then
Yeah,
you're going to bed sweating?"
that sounds
So
awful.
the campfire is a great idea, but just give it maybe a few more months, and it'll be
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh yeah. Just wait a few months on that. But do go by college football 25. worth every penny. It's incredible.
Yeah, you won't hang out. Your friends will have to come to you if you
That's
want to
right.
hang out with them.
Yep. Yep. You want to spend more time with your friends? Buy that
Mhm.
video game and they will come.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yep.
that's the Angels in the Outfield. Is that a movie? Am I saying that wrong? Like,
No, it's the oh gosh, what movie is
or
it?
is it if you
Field of
build it, they will?
Dreams.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. If you build
Yep.
it, they will come.
Yep.
Same thing with a video game.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
Well,
perfect.
that's a wrap on episode 2. So go be a dog today.
And go be there for your dogs.